Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tariq Amin, founder CEO Textile Today, welcoming you all to the TexTIME episode 10. Host presents TexTIME episode 10. We will be talking about on sustainable chemical supply chain. So to talk about on the issue today, we have three honorable panel members with us. And of course, like every other session, today also we will be going in like two segments. One is we have a number of participants in the webinar. Many of you already have joined. Thanks for joining all. And this program is also going live in YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and other platforms. So thank you all for joining. In the social media, those who will have joined, please like and share as if your colleagues can join and see. So in the beginning, I would like to introduce my panel today. Today, we have three distinguished panel members with me. I would like to introduce them. First of all, Prashad Pant. He is the Director of South Asia in ZDHC program, Zero Discharge to Hazardous Chemicals. Prashad, good afternoon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting, Tariq.
Thank you. And we have with us Dr. Thomas Schaefer. He is the head of Academy of bluesign. Thomas, thanks for joining. Good morning.
Tarek, thanks for invitation on this beautiful Sunday. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. And also we have a very special guest today, Mr. Anish Paliwal. He is the Global Marketing Manager of Huntsman Corporation. Anish, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tariq. Thanks for inviting.
So thank you all. So in the context, we selected this topic, the sustainable chemical supply chain. We all know how, COVID has impacted the world. And in terms of chemical supply chain, I think there was a significant impact. Those who are dealing with this, they know very well. Because in one side, we have seen demand fall in the garments and price fall. And on the other side, we have seen a lot of difficulties and interruptions in the supply chain. So like any other commodities or any other raw materials, the price of dyes and chemicals were also unstable. And not only the price, even the supply was also disrupted. So the industry was going through in this situation. At the same time, compliance or chemical compliance has been discussed a lot, and a lot of issues and a lot of progress was made before COVID. So, and afterwards, how it goes. So whether we are progressing or we are going back. So there are questions. So these all those questions will come at the same time. We are seeing a lot of climate change issues globally, and we are seeing the environment is behaving unusual. So these things also in the discussion. So the importance of this sustainable chemical, I think, is increasing, and at the same time, the challenges coming up in the supply chain we have in front of us. So at the beginning, I would like to go to Prashad. As you are working in between, the brands and also the factories, trying to implement chemical management systems. From your side, how do you see? Is there any change in the regulations before COVID and today? What are the challenges and what are the main aspects you see in the implementation challenge of the sustainable chemical?
Well, the COVID impact, at least in our part of the world, was really felt around April of last year, April 2020. It gradually started. And we could see that it came as a real shocker to everybody because, for the first time, nobody was able to go out, and all activities came to a total standstill. And of course, ZDHC was also affected by the pandemic, as all other companies were. Implementation part of the program, I think, suffered a little bit, of course, because the factories were not working. But subsequent to that, I think around September, October of 2020, personally, I was a little bit surprised that the factories were still, those who were engaged with ZDHC were still quite deeply engaged. I mean, we came out with a supplier to zero program, which was like a self-evaluation platform for the facilities to evaluate their chemical management systems. And we found that, it was a pilot launch that we did around September. And we found that a lot of factories actually participated in that and tried to implement that. From ZDHC, of course, we took a very empathetic view of the facilities status. We actually had waived off the wastewater testing, which was required, because as per our wastewater guidelines, there are 2 cycles where they have to test the wastewater to demonstrate their zero discharge of hazardous chemicals. But we had waived it off because we knew that the facilities were undergoing financial pressure and they were in more or less in a survival mode. But internally, ZDHC did not slacken. We focused on all our deliverables. We kept on working on what we wanted to achieve. And even in this year, I think we are not seeing that there is any kind of difficulty in implementing the ZDHC program. So we are going quite at the same pace as what we were last year with respect to the program deliverables.
Thank you, Prashad. This is very, encouraging to listen, because many people was anticipating that, this COVID will, destroy the sustainability progress. But I previously also heard from some of the industries that, and also brands, they mentioned that particularly in Bangladesh, I know the companies really, they maintain the compliance and also they improved in supply chain. So it is good news. And Dr. Thomas, I would like to ask you, on the current context, how do you see the importance of sustainable chemical and what we are in the position today?
Yes, you can say that the sustainable chemicals, and just to say, perhaps we come to this topic later on, sustainable chemicals is more than chemicals which are less hazardous or chemicals which have less impurity or MRSL conform chemicals. It's a bit more sustainable chemicals. And what we see, so that we are famous for working on the ground. So we go to chemical companies, we go to textile manufacturers, we are doing audits. And this is a bit more complicated during COVID. That's clear. We have to go for remote audits when it's not possible to go to this country, but we can manage this. And it's astonishing that I'm not the sales guy in bluesign, but it's astonishing that I think we have the same number of companies which are interested in bluesign during COVID. There's no decrease that people say, oh, we have other things to do or whatever. It's the same on-ramping of the same, more or less same number of companies who wanted to go for bluesign. This is a bit astonishing. I thought it goes down, but it's not.
Yeah, it's indeed. And so Anish, how do you see this? Well, the requirements are still in place and everybody is complying with those even in the hard time. And for you, you have to supply the chemicals or with maintaining all the requirements and compliance. And while, a lot of interruptions from both sides, the finance and also the supply. How was your life?
No, I think you're right. This COVID has impacted a lot of I would say, from the supplying of chemicals, because I think what happened when everything was locked, and as Prasad mentioned that we have seen it in our life first time that everybody was locked in the home. And so everything has gone down. We see whole supply chain, I would say the whole supply chain was dried off. And when things started coming up, then they all came with, everybody was looking for starting their up when the things when the lockdown was coming out. And there was a scarcity around, because not only the companies were manufacturing, I would say textile, but the companies were manufacturing chemicals, were manufacturing raw materials. They all just started up. And so there was, I would say, a gap somewhere. And also because of all supplies, I think the ports were quite busy. So there was a lot of disruption in the supply chain. But I would say a company like Huntsman, I think we always strive that whatever we supply, it's compliant, and it is important to be compliant and better not to supply if possible if we are not compliant. So I think it has affected chemical industry a lot, but this has also brought something, I would say, more discipline in the industry. And I think people have learned that there can be disruptions, but we have to follow. And I think sustainability is a part to go. this is a path which we should have to follow in the future, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the commitment towards sustainability is keeping in the same before we had before the COVID came. It is good news, of course. So Thomas, as I have asked you, in the current context, particularly in the global context, we are seeing a lot of climate change issues and environmental aspects. As a chemist, how do you see how do you see the role of chemical industry, and particularly in the textile chemical industry over there, and what important should be done? If you say few things.
Yes, I think this is the way how we have to go for sustainable chemicals. Really, at the moment, we talk about sustainable chemicals. Sometimes we say preferred chemicals or things like this, and we talk more or less only about less hazardous chemicals used, less impurities in this dyestuffs and auxiliaries. It's all about this. Some people do a bit more, like bluesign. We are checking the chemical companies, and we look on the environmental performance, and we go for an appropriate product stewardship. But exactly regarding the greenhouse gas things, we should add some more parameters, attributes to a sustainable chemical. And the one is that this chemical, clear, it should be less hazardous and so on, but it should be a chemical which perhaps can save some energy, some resources, some water, some electricity, some time in doing textile manufacturing. This is one part of sustainability, I think, that you need less resources with this chemical in textile manufacturing. And then perhaps we can go and say, and this is a bit more difficult because some data will be missing, I think, but then we can say, okay, this chemical should be also produced in chemical industry, in the whole chemical supply chain, and this is difficult, but it should be produced with less energy, with less greenhouse gas emissions. And this is the next part. And one part more is that we perhaps, it's also difficult to say this chemical is used to finish a textile, and at the end the usage phase is with less greenhouse gas emissions or whatever, and the disposal is appropriate.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will come back to you asking, as a researcher, do you see any big change in coming days in terms of particular or basic chemical which really can helpful giving some game-changing prospect? Maybe Anish also can add on that. But before that, I would like to ask Prashad, can you update us about the ZDHC's current program and how it's moving, and what is your plan in coming days?
Yeah, so the ZDHC program, as you know, is all about hazardous chemistry. But as Thomas has put it, and the apt question which you talked about is about climate change. So we are actually now looking at the impact areas, as we call it. In fact, we had an impact day also, where we formally sort of launched that how ZDHC is going to now look at impact areas. And we have identified 4 impact areas. One is, of course, climate change. The other is water stewardship. The third is biodiversity, and the fourth is circularity. So these are the 4 impact areas. And when we say or when we talk about ZDHC, we are perceived as, oh, these are the chemical people. And generally, you will see even at maybe some of the brands, people shy away from whenever we talk about chemicals or chemical management. They think this is too scientific, this is too geeky, But in fact, these are the chemicals are the ones which are impacting water, impacting climate, impacting biodiversity and circularity. So this is what is going to be the vision of ZDHC in the coming years as to how we link these chemicals into these impact areas. And of course, the other immediate actions like the upgrading the MRSL, updating our wastewater guidelines. We have just published in June 2021 we published the Chemical Management System Technical Industry Guide. So it becomes an industry standard for manufacturing facilities to adopt and implement a chemical management system. So these are the different activities that ZDHC is going to focus on.
Okay, thank you very much. And I mean, you have mentioned already about the RSL and MRSL, I mean, the factories, those who are using the chemicals over here in the manufacturing countries, you know, they need to comply with them, and also they need a lot of certifications today. So, you know, Anish, from your side, while you mentioned that you have complied everything, but you know, on the factory side, you have heard a lot that they have less options from the market when it is about compliant chemicals. How do you see the market situation right now? How the supply is there, and is it too costly to maintain the compliances, or why the supply options are less?
Tariq, the first important thing which I want to here emphasize, and which Prasad also started and Thomas had put, first thing is knowledge. And I think it is important. There are options available. So it is firstly very important I right training to the people and the selection of chemicals. There are compliant chemicals available around, but it is important that how we manage and how we maintain. I think the first most important part is the traceability, I think, across our value chain. So I think the first thing which we all have to focus, I think all as a group, not only Huntsman, I think including bluesign, ZDHC together, we have to increase the traceability across our value chain. So that I think traceability as of now is just till tier 1 suppliers. So if we increase the traceability, this will be very easy and important for the people to be compliant. And I think there are chemistries available definitely for being compliant. And for some chemistries, if not, I think there are work and R&D going into that direction to be compliant. So I don't see any reason for not being compliant. I think it's about right resources, right people approaching to right companies to get the solutions.
Yeah, and how about your supply, and in Huntsman, how it was? You already answered, but still, did you face any difficulties in some of the areas?
Yeah, it's sometimes
not only compliance. I mean supply commitments.
Okay, whole supply. Yeah, I would say might be some 3, 4, 5 months back when things came up, because there was supply chain dry sometime back in between. I think I would somewhere at the start of this year. And then there were some challenges getting into, because the whole supply chain of, I would say, textile garments were dried up. So there was orders again coming back. And also because of change in consumer behaviors. If you follow, we have seen a high uplift in home textiles, and might be more into, I would say, lounge wears than compared to the formal wears or the normal shirt or a trousers. So there was things quite changed, but I think now things have normalized. I think now the things are on track. So there was some disruption somewhere at the start of the year on getting the raw materials exactly. And that has definitely negatively impacted the industry at that point of time. But now I think the things are in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Anish. Thomas, from your side, I would like to ask you about the progress in bluesign and the formation of bluesign Academy. Why this academy has been formed, and what is the main role of you?
Okay, so now bluesign, we in total we still want to go our way and to work on the ground, because we think that there are a lot of low-hanging fruits in the chemical industry and textile manufacturing industry. So you can do a lot of easy things to improve the supply chain. This is the first what I want to tell you. And the next thing, the bluesign Academy, we have now this name, but it's not a very new thing. So our purpose is to generate and to disseminate valuable sustainability knowledge for the society and the industry, because, and we had this discussion before our meeting today already, because we think that everything starts with knowledge, with intelligence, and knowledge, our brain, this is what is the difference because a normal animal and human mankind. And we can survive as human mankind only when we distribute this knowledge to everybody and when we increase this knowledge. And so in future, it's not already done, in future we want to go for a smoother, for a better training, education of our system partners, and which is now easy to do because we learned to do webinars and things like this. In the past, it was always traveling, and yes, this knowledge.
What would be the exact programs? Do you have anything concrete? To disseminate knowledge, any specific things you are coming up with for the factories?
Yes, but I cannot give you now a training plan or whatever. But this is in progress. That we, that we have installed our chemicals experts group. So when we go for limits for our BSSL and then our BSBL, we have already a good communication channel with our chemical suppliers, and we have to install this also for our manufacturer, which are system partners, to train them on all things which are important regarding sustainability, regarding water saving, resource saving, things like this, and chemicals management.
Okay, we are in post-presence TexTIME. It is episode 10. We are discussing about sustainable chemical supply chain. So all the participants, those who are in the webinar and also in the other platforms, you can ask your question. And while you'll be asking questions, please give your designation as if we can recognize you. We already got some of the questions. I will take some of them from there. So before that, just Prashad, I at the beginning also I asked, you told that you had a lot of difficulties in terms of reaching to the factories in terms of implementation. How do you see in the coming days? Will it be, in the short future, will it be possible for you to come again and also help the factories to implement?
Yeah, actually, the COVID has given us these new technologies. I mean, we did not. In fact, today when I call up my clients, they tell that, sir, why are you coming over here? Let's have a Zoom call. So it is. We are now adapted to these technologies where we can speak to each other without the need for really traveling. In fact, some of the virtual audits which were allowed by ZDHC during the pandemic, we have extended that. So the virtual audits are now part and parcel of the implementation package. In fact, just last month we did one implementation project at one textile mill in India, and almost 80% or 90% of it was done virtually. I mean, we advised them online. We had about 7-8 calls, and we advised them online, and there was only a final visit that we did to physically see. But yes, the final visit or a physical interaction, I think, is very important in any kind of implementation work that we do. And we're taking all the precautions into consideration. I think we will be having a combination of a virtual environment and a little bit of a physical interaction to drive this implementation. So yes, we have been very active, and I don't foresee any real practical issues in accelerating the implementation work that we are doing as of now.
Well, it is interesting to know about this virtual audit. Dr. Thomas, how do you see it? Is it effective or?
So virtual audits are, I would say, effective when it's not an initial audit, but a re-auditing, a second audit, a third audit. You know already the people, you know the production side, you had seen the off-gas abatement systems in the water treatment plant. Then you can compare it really. But to make an initial audit without knowing the site, this is really complicated, and there should be the near time that we can do it physically again, I have to say.
How was your strategy?
So we changed. So we do physical audits when we can do, and we have people in Taiwan, and in the past they could travel and they could do it. We do sometimes a combined thing, that's a person is on site, but the person is not the, let me say, it's perhaps a salesperson, but he is there and can support us when we do a virtual audit. And if it's not an initial audit, not the first audit, we did it in the past virtually by webinar, and this is really possible because you know already the site, yeah. But there should be the time when we can go really physically and work on the ground, and
hopefully
you have to see the machines, you have to see the wastewater treatment plant, you have to smell it. You cannot smell by webinar and feel the odor and so on. So let's hope that the time is near that we can go on.
Yeah,
we cannot email a handshake, as they say.
Yes, and yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much. From the audience side, we got some question. Particularly one question I received from Mr. Shahadat Hussain. He's a chemical management specialist. He's asking to Anish. His question is, what is your initiative to develop sustainable and multifunctional chemicals to reduce carbon and water footprint, beside to be compliant? So, Anish, please.
No, I think thanks for the question. I think this is very important, and I think whole of, if I say that whatever we are doing now from the chemistry side, it is very much aligned to save our resources. I think our textile industry is highly resources intensive. So I think the first and foremost thing I would say, Avitara Acid, these are our reactive dyes for cellulosic, which I think we have launched around 10 years back, but then we are developing that, because we launched with 3 dyes, and now we have make it with 18 dye stuff, where you can save up to 50% of water, 50% of energy, and I would say 50% of carbon dioxide emissions as well. And as I told you that the consumer preferences are changing, people are shifting from 100% cotton to more on polyester cotton, I would say. And we all know polyester cotton is highly resource intensive fiber blend to process. It takes around, if you follow conventional things, it takes 15 hours sometimes to process. It takes 120 liters of water per kg of the fabric. So here we have created a processes like Avitara Acid Fast, which is a combination of our Traceability WW and Avitara Acid Dyestuff, which help you to reduce your carbon footprints and energy. And also,
yeah, Prashad, sorry, Anish, for 10 years back, significant development came, Avitara, we know that, and this is helping industry. So don't you see that 10 years is a long time to, get another innovation? Is there anything very soon?
No. Why I tell you 10 years? This is a basic idea to tell you 10 years. Yeah. The idea is because when you start developing dyes, dyes is you can wait for 10 years and come back with 20 dyes to cover everything. Or you can start with 2 or 3 dye stuff to start penetration. Keep something which is at you, and don't keep it in your pocket. Come out to the industry, at least it can do something better for the industry. So we started with, I would say, 3 dyes at that time, just 3 dyes. Now you have, I think from last 2-3 years, now we have whole gamut to cover everything. So now we can say, if you can do now, you can shift whole textile industry on cotton and polyester cotton with the Avitara Acid dyes as well. And I don't want to make a big statement, but if we shift all cotton processing with Avitara, we can save around 400 billion liters of water every year, which is something around 575 million people fresh drinking water for them. So I think it is quite important.
Big impact, of course. Yeah, of course, indeed. I know dyes, you cannot make it every day. So of course, it takes time. And Thomas, I had a question. Yeah, Prashad, please go on.
I will just like to add to what Anish said and what you said, that 10 years nothing has happened, or even before that, we have not really seen any step-changing innovation. I really feel that the chemical industry doing it alone will never meet this target. I think it is time now for collaboration. It is a time where the chemical industry, the machinery industry, the textile processing industry, right down to the fibers, we all collaborate and think about how we can create a step change in our industry. I think it is very important right now, post-COVID, when we are like, we have technologies like supercritical carbon dioxide dyeing and all, which are really, or even digital printing, which has brought a little bit of a step change in the way we used to print, So I think this is the right time where we have a collaboration of the different stakeholders and really look at what kind of step change innovations we now bring into the textile industry.
And ZDHC, do you contribute in some way?
Well, our innovations is a part of what we are looking at. We are also looking at something called as a sustainable chemical framework. So we are looking at a framework where what Thomas talked about is, how do chemicals also help in resource efficiency, or how do chemicals help in different sustainable aspects. But when you're talking about innovations, yes, I think it requires a lot of collaboration between the different stakeholders. I mean, if you have only if you expect that only the chemical industry will come up with something which is going to, revolutionize this whole industry, I don't think it is possible.
Indeed. And for them also, they have a lot of difficulties maintaining all the, research infrastructure and also the cost. So Thomas, how do you see it? You have been in the research for a long time, and how do you see this?
Yes, clear to Anish. So Avitera is a great thing, and in the last years, I would say inkjet printing was also a good thing, a really good thing. But sorry to say, and I agree totally to Prashad that we need a collaboration. That's totally the need, and of all the stakeholders. But sorry to say, I do not see at the moment, sorry, especially for Anish, I do not see at the moment the new green molecules coming on, because if you want to create a new molecule for textile industry and you sell it afterwards for $1 per kilogram or whatever, forget it. So the people are investing in pharmaceutical things where you can get millions. I think that the market is difficult, and people, especially in America, when they talk about green chemistry, they talk about new molecules. I do not see the new molecules. We have now the fibers, the polyamide, the polyester, polypropylene. There will be no new fiber. We have the reactive dispersed dyes, and then it's a bit fixed. So sorry to say, but the hope for new green molecules, I do not see them at the moment. We can improve, we can, and there are still, sorry to say it again, there are still so many low-hanging fruits. How you apply these chemicals and how you manage the chemicals, you can save a lot of energy in water at the moment with low-hanging fruits. And the new molecules would be great, but I do not see them at the moment.
Maybe if there is no opportunity for new molecules, maybe you just replace, or you don't use chemical anymore. Without using chemical, how can you dye? We need to find out.
Yeah.
So
but with existing molecules, you can do it much more better.
Yeah, I think
all companies can do it much better. We know it all. Yeah.
I think, Tariq, I support Thomas. Might be there are many low-hanging fruits, and already we have technologies which has come, I think, in span of last 5 years, 6 years, I would say that we should invest, and we can save a lot of, as I've given an example on water, we can
just use it.
Yeah, a lot of resources into that. And I think one more important thing which I would like to add is, I think there should be, we talk on high level, there should be a culture and mindset shift between the consumer and the brands as well. Okay, when we talk of sustainability, it's a very big word, I would say. But what we are translating into actions on sustainability is very, very important. We have to see that what we are doing really for our industry, and I would say for our future generations at least. And we are not going into I would say we are going now in the direction of cheap and fast fashion. But I think we should come back, think over it. Might be a sustainable fashion, long-lasting garments. I think these are also things which can help and support this whole sustainability initiative.
Totally
yes,
agree.
indeed. There are challenges and different challenges for the different stakeholders in the industry, for the factories. they have a lot of things to improve, but of course they have made a lot of success also, adopting a lot of new technology, and also, significant change has been made through last 10 years in particular. And for the chemical industry, a lot of regulations are coming up, and RSL, MRSL, many things came up, many development happened. So we will go on those aspects of discussions. Before that, I would like to share one small video from our sponsor company on sustainability. Course is the title sponsor of this program. After seeing that video, I will come back from the questions of the audience we got. Yeta কোথায়? Share it. Excuse me, just a minute, please.
It's
Well, we are having some small interruptions in the technical side, so I would like to skip this and continue the discussion. Sorry for the interruption. So coming back to the discussions and all the questions we have received from our honorable audience, just to take some of them. One question I have received from MD Ashrafuzzaman. He's the marketing person from Modern Testing Services. Question to Prashad. There are some lab you gave nomination to do MRSL test and certificate. Do you have visited those lab, or do you have any plan to visit them to see their facility and capabilities? If any plans, so what is the procedure to invite your team? Prashad.
Well, we have approved some testing laboratories for the MRSL testing, and this is done through a review process of the lab. There is a team in my head office which reviews all the quality documents and the test procedures that the lab does. We also have one particular requirement of the ISO 17025 being one of the certifications that they have, not only as a lab, but also for each and every substance that they test. It should be in the scope of their ISO certification. So we are depending on third-party certifications or authorities to really ensure that these labs are meeting the quality norms that are expected. We don't do a visit to these labs, not up till now. We will, or we are planning a due diligence kind of process where we will be evaluating or having some kind of a quality compliance procedure in place. But as of now, it is not a visit, it is a document review of their current systems and quality management practices that they do, by which we monitor and approve these labs.
Yeah, thank you. And another question we have received from Shahriar Jinnah Biplab, who is a business development manager in some of the chemical company. He is asking about, the factories preferring cheap alternative product while, they have, they have to export garments in a lower price, while the sustainability has a cost. So Anish, how do you see it? Why, always the sustainable product has to be in a higher in price?
No, I think it should not be. We cannot say always it has to be in higher price. It depends on what chemistry we are using, and definitely if you're going into very cheap chemistries which are around from last 100 years, they can be damn cheap. But I think what we are trying to do is as well. We always try to keep a balance on economic and environmental sustainability, because I think if you're producing something which a company cannot afford, then it is always difficult. But yeah, it will be little upcharge from the cheap dyes and chemicals around. So I think this is really important to understand that if you're creating a dye molecule, new one, it carries a small cost with it. Okay, but as chemistry goes in production, it becomes big, the cost comes down. So I would say there can be initial barrier for the start, because then you're just launching a chemical. But when it goes wide, and like I can take an example of digital inks. Things are improving. I think digital ink, when started 10 years back, it was quite unaffordable at many cases. But things have changed over the years, and you see more and more things are shifted towards digital printing. So I think it is always a barrier at the start. And I think this is what we have to overcome. When we bring something new, it is a small barrier at the start, and we are able to come up, we are able to commercialize it at a bigger scale. The cost comes down in future. So I think it's all about balancing act.
Yeah, and also, how quickly you adapt the new technology, reaching to the optimum level.
Yeah.
So
I think, Tarek, I would like to add to what Anish said, and this is a question which always people ask, that if I have to be sustainable, my cost will go up. And I always say, there are two things I always say, that from my experience, because I have sold dyes and chemicals, and I have also now into chemical management. I can vouch for the fact that if you go for sustainable chemicals, if you go for compliant chemicals, your cost actually comes down. It doesn't go. I can give you thousands of practical cases for that. Number two is that, we say, what is the price of conformance? But I always counter this with the question, what is the price of non-conformance? Have we ever imagined what is the price of non-conformance? And our COVID impact is one of the impacts of non-conformance that we do. So let's think about what is the price of non-conformance rather than what is the price of conformance. And I think it's a myth that, by using such kind of quality chemicals or standardized chemicals, my cost will increase. I mean, you have to look at price per kilo of the dye stuff or price per kilo on the fabric.
But at the same time, the companies, they will require some knowledge and also the training and support, to adopt them. And sometimes as well, because any change requires some time, and Bangladeshi companies in particular, I know them, they have made significant progress in using such technologies. And I believe, Anish, you know better.
No, I think
how is your market in Bangladesh?
I think I agree. I will add here, I think Bangladesh is one of the biggest market which has adopted Avitara in a big way. So I want to congratulate the whole market. I think this market has taken this dye stuff and they have implemented a lot, I think. And you are right. I think people have the knowledge of Bangladesh industry is becoming high. I think they are able to realize, I think, big companies, that as Prashant mentioned, okay, it's not about cost. It's about using the right process, right chemicals, and then actually might your cost is down.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thomas, we had a question for a long time. Mr. Saiz Shwaib, probably he is working in some of the brands. He's asking, in sustainability nowadays, one of the important ideas are being emphasized, traceability of raw materials. What will be our measure for traceability in chemical and yarn procurement? So, Thomas, how do you see how traceable the chemical is? From the knowledge side, what are the difficulties?
Yes, so when we are taking the bluesign system, which says that a textile manufacturer should use only so-called bluesign approved chemicals, and these bluesign approved chemicals origins from a bluesign system partner, from a chemical company which is assessed by us, then I would say that traceability is given at best. However, the normal case that a textile manufacturer is using just some chemicals which are not nominated by the brands, then traceability starts very soon at the textile manufacturer. That's clear. But with our system, we introduce especially the chemical supplier, which is a system partner of us, and he produces bluesign approved chemicals. We have now a search engine, a bit like your gateway, Prashad, and our search engine now contains 17,000 dyestuffs and auxiliaries. I would say just use it. They are all level 3, the best what ZDHC can present. They are level 3. Just use the 17,000, and there are a lot of Huntsman chemicals in. They are there. Just use it, and then it's clear from whom the chemicals come, and we know everything about these chemicals. We know the impurities in, and so by using this approved chemicals, you can assure traceability, I would say.
Okay, and I think we will be having some complementary questions later on this. Before going in further, I would like to ask both of you. First, Prashad, can you respond on the RSL and MRSL lists, and how is the current context, of those lists, and how it's working?
So currently, each brand is having its own RSL, and that is mainly because you have different articles and the different kinds of processes and fibers. So you will always have different requirements with respect to the RSL. And the MRSL that ZDHC came up with, and which shifted the focus from output to input. Basically, we start looking at managing imports. Really speaking, MRSL is not linked to the RSL. I mean, when I say this, what I mean is that not all the limits given in the MRSL actually means that you can meet your RSL. MRSL is just a starting point, because we wanted to make it, first of all, as practical as possible to implement from the point of view of the chemical companies. And hence, you can see that the MRSL right now is the first step. And as Thomas said, we have all these lists in the ZDHC gateway, in the Blue Finder, and so many other platforms, like you have the Inditex, the list and all. So these are all chemicals which have been reviewed by a third party, which can help the industry to make very, very informed purchasing decisions, as to which is the right chemical that I should buy. In the next step that we are looking at, I talked about the sustainable chemicals framework that ZDHC is working on. The next step is, yes, how we now link MRSL to the RSL requirement. And that is what we are going to call as the progressive level of our sustainable chemicals management, where it is product in use. It is called as product in use. And then the third level will be the aspirational level, where we will look at the other sustainability factors, such as the resource efficiency and other aspects.
Okay, thank you. And
can I add?
A lot of questions. Thomas, yeah, please go on.
Can I add one point? So we at bluesign, since the beginning, and this is a bit of difference to ZDHC, we say that using the right processes, following the bluesign criteria with our bluesign approved chemicals, you are able to be compliant with our consumer safety list. We call it a BSSL, which is, and you can say also you will be able to confirm to an affirm RSL, which is a typical RSL. One point is difficult. Here I agree. To Prashant, RSL conformity is not only about chemicals. If you use a raw material, a textile, which contains already tons of APO, then you will have it at the end also. So it's a combination of having MRSL conform or bluesign approved chemicals, plus having an input stream management at the textile manufacturer, which perhaps has a specification. When he buys a raw material, he says it must be APO free or whatever. So you have to look also on the textile raw material, which brings also a lot of RSL substances into the whole supply chain. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, when it is chemicals, in some format, it is coming from the chemical side, isn't it? Maybe in the fiber production area. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, thank you. And we have a few more questions. We'll try to take them. One question is from Mr. Din Islam. He is working in Baja Paints, Bangladesh, who have asked about to Anish particularly. As you all of you know that yarn price of chemical shipping related costs are increasing. How long it will continue? You know, particularly on in the difficulties in the logistics. Anish, how do you see this? You know?
I'm not a logistic expert, okay, but what we see in the industry for us as well, it is the same case because we also move around raw materials from one location to other location to produce dyes and chemicals. So shipping industry costs have hurt a lot, and what we see in this industry in short term, at least, this is going to remain. The shipping cost going to remain high. What we also anticipate. I'm not a shipping expert or a logistic expert to see it how it's long term, but this is the same pitch as a chemical industry we also face. The shipping cost and the freight cost, sea freight, everything has gone high to the roof, and we see it to be there for some time.
And what is the impact on the ground? You know, what percentage of price generally increased? Cost, not price. Cost for the factories.
Like I would say if you ask me, for us as well, the cost increases. It depends how much. But you have seen changing in the prices of dyes and chemicals also, I think in last 6 months. So there was a movement of raw material prices, and one of the important factor of movement of raw material prices were the shipping cost. So the shipping cost has increased definitely.
What are you doing to reduce impact on the ground by any change in the supply chain strategy? Or?
Yeah, definitely. We try to mitigate the challenges by trying to find the sources of the raw materials. Okay, China is the biggest source, so it's always difficult to mitigate China supply chain. Okay, but we are trying to establish more supply chains in South Asia, I would say, so that we are able to maintain, I would say, and manage these costs in short term, I would say.
Do you consider Bangladesh as a manufacturing or warehouse hub?
Not as of now. Okay, we don't have as of now, but in future we will definitely look into.
Okay, thank you. I think there are hard questions coming up from the participants, particularly for both chemical experts. We have Thomas and Prashad. Which authority is recognized to all brands or buyers for measuring sustainability in dyes and chemicals? Mr. Iqbal Rizvi, he has asked. Before putting this question, why, a lot of, there are common questions on the ground that, why a lot of separate restricted lists and why we cannot combine them? And I would ask it to both, Thomas first.
Yes, there's one rule from Mr. Newton. Nobody knows, and this rule means if you want to create a harmonized label or harmonized list or whatever, you create a new one, the next one. This is a rule Mr. Newton invented 100 years ago, but it's not known.
That means Newton didn't know chemical. No,
and I think it makes sense that there are, for some extent, it makes sense that there are different lists because GOGS focus on organic cotton, and we are more or less known. It's not really true, but for the polyester, we are the polyester guys outside. To some extent, it makes sense. To some extent, it's nonsense that we have this different lists, especially that every brand wants to have its own RSL. Sometimes it makes sense, and Prashad explained already. Some of them are in the automotive sector and in apparel but you should go for a harmonization, and we try it. I think this is a kind of cooperation between Amsterdam and us, that we look on a harmonized and aligned MRSL. This we are doing. So here we are forerunners, and we try to, and the MRSL and BSSBL, they are harmonized. So this is perhaps the first example for a good cooperation, even if we are competitors perhaps at the end. So you can do it, but it's difficult, yeah.
So you are not being able to put impact on the brands that much yet. Prashad, I think ZDHC has helped a lot, aligning a lot of brands in one platform, but still there are brands, those who are not recognized in ZDHC yet. So why?
No, it is not that brands don't recognize ZDHC, but individual brands have their own programs also. And you will realize that within the whole ecosystem of ZDHC, there are some brands who are already way ahead. They are already quite advanced in their chemical management programs and building sustainable suppliers, whereas some of the brands are still joining in, and they are starting their journey on chemical management. And ZDHC's effort has been towards harmonization. I mean, you can see that we have, as Thomas said, we are working closely with bluesign, we are working closely with Inditex, the list. We have never created a separate certification. If you see, when you talk about ZDHC, we are not asking the chemical companies nor the textile companies to go in for a new certificate. I mean, ZDHC has never been a certification. It is a set of actions that the supplier has to do. And the chemical supplier can choose any of the third-party certificates which are approved by ZDHC. We have just created these 3 levels of MRSL conformance for the suppliers or the buyers of these chemicals to have more confidence in the consistency of the MRSL. So it is not that ZDHC is not trying to harmonize these, but as Thomas said, there are certain reasons why some standards are there. For example, if you want to do organic cotton, you have to go for the GOTS certification. So, there are, in spite of the fact that you may do some other certification for an MRSL level 1. So, I usually, tell or answer this question that, would you ever be able to have only one language in this whole world? Or would you be ever have only one religion?
But we choose one when we communicate.
So ZDHC could be the English language. We try, but you still have you will still have different languages. You will still have different religions in the world.
And how do you answer the other question? Who is really the authority? Is it the brands?
See, I don't think we should really talk about authority. When we talk about authority, we talk about something called as legal or something called as regulation. Only the governments have authority over what we talk about.
But if the governments are the authority, then in the same country, why the brands from the same country having different set of rules?
So one of the agendas that we have in the regions is to also engage the regulatory authorities for the ZDHC program, and we have been doing that in most of the countries. I mean, I have had several discussions with the Department of Environment in Bangladesh, even the Ministry of Environment in India. But the governments or they have a political agenda. They have their own way in doing things because they have to take into account a lot of factors when we talk about. Now, for example, if we really say that everybody, all the textile industry in India or Bangladesh, they only go with the bluesign standard or something like that, then you will see that a lot of factories will have to even close down. Or if you say that everybody goes for zero liquid discharge, I mean, it is not possible that overnight everybody can go for zero liquid discharge. So there has to be, every government looks at various aspects as to how they can implement, whether the industry is really ready for these kinds of standards and all. So engagement is going on. I will openly tell that we are engaging with the regulatory authorities to try and embed the ZDHC program in the regulations, so that you get more compliance by the industry. But it is
thank you, Prashad. I have a lot of important things left, but only 2 minutes in my hand. One of the most important area is wastewater treatment and this ETP area. So why you all are more concentrating only on the input materials, not on the downstream? Thomas, are you also like that, as Prashad had mentioned?
So I would say if you control the input at best, you have an indirect control on the output. That's the reason why you go for the input, and the wastewater discharge. Yes, you have to have wastewater treatment plants because, and this is really true. It might be a bit strange, but 90% of all the chemicals we are using in textile finishing industry are process chemicals, and they are just discharged to the wastewater path, and you cannot change this at the moment, and only 10% will go to the fiber, the dye stuffs and some finishing agents. So you have to have in every case an output control which is which is an appropriate wastewater treatment plant, but you can do a lot of things if you just say no on the input side. This is the best and easiest thing, but you need.
Yeah, it's a good approach, but of course, big questions is there in the wastewater regulations and also guidelines also. So Anish, another question came up. RSL and MRSL, are they sufficient to measure sustainability? How do you see this?
No, I think RSL and MRSL are only just one part. I think sustainability is a big word, and I think other parts of sustainability is about the resources which we are using. I think water, energy, carbon dioxide emission, these are the other very, very important parts of sustainability. So RSL and MRSL is, yes, this talks of most hazardous chemicals which are coming, and to avoid that. But other part which is very important is resource saving. And I think it is very important to be towards a circular economy, which we want to be. So
yeah, this question has came already. I wanted to finish by asking this. So from your side, you mentioned, there is a question from Alcindra. She is asking probably both Thomas and Prashad though about this circular chemical and the regulations regarding that. So circularity. So from the chemical manufacturing side, Anish, how do you see in future?
No, I think this is very important, and it has been moving in that direction. Like example, one thing I can touch on fiber as well. As you see more and more polyester being used, and recycled polyester is becoming a very important part. And I think every brand, if you see now, is committing to use the recycled polyester going forward. So I think the circularity is coming, and I think we as a Huntsman is also trying to support the circularity also by bringing all our efforts into direction of saving of resources. Whatever we launch, it's more into direction of saving on resourcing. And I think lasting garments is very important. So we are also trying to develop chemicals, or we have some like non-fulminated PFC-free rain and stain management chemicals which help you to reduce the washing of your garment when it is under use. So
thank you. And in terms of circularity, what are the main challenges? Is there any regulations coming up, Thomas? Or do you have any
So circularity of textile chemicals is at the moment a dream, but we all should have dreams. I told you already that 90% of the chemicals are used one time for a few hours. They are processed chemicals and they end up in the wastewater stream, and it's difficult to take them out. It would be the first source, and the 10% which ends up on the textile are on a textile, and then we have to talk about textile recycling and in the next step we can talk about circularity of textile finishing chemicals like this.
I got your answer, and I believe that the person who has asked the question as well. Prashad, at the end, in terms of wastewater treatment, do you see this is a dissolved issue or technical difficulties we have here?
No, there are a lot of technical difficulties. I think wastewater treatment is still looked upon by textile factories as an expense, as a forced expense, because they have to meet the legal norms that before discharging. But as Thomas said, that we should focus on input management, and we should also, along with input, we should try and focus on process efficiency, so that you have less amount of these chemicals going into the waste. I think treatment technologies are improving. We have a lot of technologies which are there in place, which can help to avoid the discharging of these hazardous chemicals in the environment.
Thank you all. Before we go, just trying to another time as if on the video if it is working. It's not working here. So thank you all. Thank you very much for participating in the program. And sorry for that. We had to continue 4 minutes more. Thanks, Anish. Thanks, Prashad, and thanks, Thomas, for joining today. Here I am ending episode 10 of TexTIME. See you in the next week in a new topic. Thank you very much.